Hello students, I am Sam sir, and we are going to do one chapter from your practical textbook of geography. The book's name is Practical Work in Geography Part 1. Part 2 is of next year. Now, the chapter's name is Introduction to Maps. Children, you have seen hundreds of maps in your lifetime till now. And this chapter is going to help you better appreciate what you see and how to interpret that, how to get the maximum from that, and even the way maps are made and what is important, what is to be included, how it is to be included, what are the problems one may face, and what could be the solutions. These are the things that are there in the chapter, and what are the uses of maps essentially. Then, what are the things essential for making a map? Now, these are the things covered in this chapter. Now, the art and science and technology of making map is known as cartography. Just note that it is both art and it's a science also, and it's a technology also. It's a combination of all these three. Now, the objective in this chapter I've already told you is to become familiar with the types and uses of maps and to understand the essentials of map making. Now, often you have drawn sketches of the place you stay, or if you're explaining something to somebody and you just take a paper and a pencil or a pen and just draw a road or two and then a turn or two, a square, a park or something, and then you say that, all right, this is the way you go. So we have all done that, and sometimes more often than not, it serves the purpose also. But in a sketch, we do not include a lot of details. We only include what is required for the time being. And the sketches are never accurate. And don't have the scale. They don't have all the details. They don't show the correct measurements. They don't show the correct directions, and still it works. So now, if you compare that with a map of the same place, now the map is having more details than a sketch, because the way a map is made is different. It's different from drawing a sketch, and drawing a sketch again is essential part of understanding how to draw a map. Now, in the previous figure, you had seen a road and a park and a station and some railway line or something. Now you see this; those details are here, but in the sketch there were details which are not here. That means the person who has drawn it has used imagination, and lot of details in this map are there which were not there in sketch. That's if you compare them side by side. Still, if it fulfills the purpose, if the sketch is fulfilling the purpose, the work is done. The work is successful. Now, in this map, this is the map of the state of Rajasthan, and you'll notice the the different colors by which the different districts have been shown. The names are there of all the districts. Then you also have the neighboring country, Pakistan, and there's a thick brown colored line which is demarcating, acting as a boundary. Then you also have different towns in India itself, different cities, but the state boundaries are in white colored thin line. Then you can also see on the right hand side corner the map of Asia. It's not very clear in this representation, but it shows a dot there, and that is the dot being represented by the state here. On the bottom right hand corner, you have the map of India, and you have a red patch there, and that patch is the state of Rajasthan. Also, sorry, below this map of India, there's a long bar with alternating black and white bands. Now, this is known as a scale. It shows some numbers 0, 100, and 200, and above that it says kilometers. We're going to learn about that a little later. Then, on the top left hand side corner, you have what is known as a compass rose, and this one is a compass rose with 4 points, and it shows the north, south, east, and west directions. Sometimes the compass rose is just like this symbol and an N written somewhere near it. This shows the north direction, and then the person who is going to interpret the map has to interpret the other directions, comparing them to the north. Sometimes you see a compass rose which is more elaborate like this. Now this one is a 16-point compass rose. You also have the 8-point compass rose which shows the intermediate directions. There are 4 cardinal directions: north, east, west, and south, and you can have other directions at geometrical values between them. Also, in this map of Rajasthan, note that the districts have been shown with different colors, and the coloring has been done in such a way that no neighboring districts are getting the same color. For example, if you look at Nagaur, is surrounded by Bikaner, Jodhpur, Pali, Ajmer, Jaipur, Sikar, and Churu. Now, the surrounding districts, the neighboring districts are not having the same color. So that is again important. These are all things we will be learning shortly in this video. Now, first of all, essential to map making is the scale. Essentially, a map is the reduction or a smaller copy of the land it is representing. So if you have to make a map of the school campus, and if the ratio has to be 1:1 or 1:1, then you will require a sheet of paper which is as big as the uh, size of the school campus. That's not possible at all. So we often make map which are thousands of time or lakhs of time, and very frequently millions of times smaller than the land it is representing. Now, map scale refers to the relationship or ratio between distance on a map and the corresponding distance on the ground. Now, for example, if you say that on the land, if 250 meter, I want to represent that on paper as 1 centimeter distance. So the ratio will become 1:25,000 because you have 25,000 centimeters in 250 meters. All right. So this ratio calculation, it's very logical and common sense, but we have a chapter on that later on. Now remember that maps are reductions of the actual land area. So the bar you just saw below the map of Rajasthan. Now there's something similar. In our example, we have taken 1 centimeter as equal to 250 meters on ground. Now on this bar, which is here enclosed in a red bordered box, there are 3 things you have to note. The first is the scale written in simple sentence, like 1 centimeter represents 250 meters. The second thing is the ratio written 1:25,000. Here units are not mentioned. And the third thing is the bar made with alternate black and white bands. and on top you have the numbers 0, 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000, and then you have the meter, the unit meters. Sometimes you find this bar which is split longitudinally again into alternating white and black bands, and below that on the left hand side you have the fractions, and below that you have different unit of measurement. For example, if on the top you have meter, on the bottom side you have feet, or on top if you have kilometer, on the bottom side you have miles. So this is known as a scale. So the first thing you decide, whenever you want to draw a map, is you have to decide the scale. Now, how will you decide the scale? The most important thing is how big your map is going to look, how big a paper you have, or how big a sheet of plastic sheet or a flex sheet you have. That is what is going to decide, and that is only half the story. But then the other half is what is the size of land you want to show on that piece of paper or piece of plastic sheet. So one you have to divide by the other. If you have to show 1 kilometer of land as 1 centimeter on the map, then you have to divide that. Now this kilometers you have to convert it into centimeter, and then convert it into the ratio, and that is the scale of the map. So you have to consider the size of the paper on which the map is going to be drawn, and the size of the land area which is you intend to show on the map. Now sets limit on the information content and the degree of reality to show on the map. If you have a big size of paper or a sheet or a chart or a flex board, then you are free to put in a lot of information, as much as it can hold or as much as it can be read clearly. Otherwise, if the size is small, then you have to only look at the essentials, what this map is intended for, what is the objective of this map. That is important for you, and then you neglect and ignore everything else. All right, so based on scale, we have large scale maps and small scale maps. We'll learn about that shortly. Now, the second thing essential for map making is the projection. Now, in cartography, a map projection is a way to flatten a globe surface onto a plane in order to make a map. You know that the globe is geoid, that is almost like a sphere. It's not a sphere, it's almost like a sphere. And when we are talking about the map, we are talking about the surface of the earth. Now, the surface of the earth is curved. Now, this curve we have to show as accurately as possible on a flat surface. Your map is a flat surface, your paper is a two-dimensional flat surface. Now, this requires a systematic transformation of the latitudes and longitudes of location from the surface of the globe into the location on the plane. So, what you're doing is you're copying piece by piece, part by part, grid by grid, square by square. The grids or squares are made by the intersection of latitudes and longitudes, and whatever is included in each square or in each grid, that you are copying from the curved surface onto the plane surface. A map projection is a method for taking the curved surface of the earth and displaying it on something flat like a computer screen or a piece of paper. There are several types of map projection methods which we are going to learn in your 11th standard in the later chapters, but none of them is 100% accurate because you are representing a curved surface on a plane surface, and it's not possible. When you're talking about three-dimensional things, it's not possible. So every map has got some distortion. Now, if you were asked to copy a plane surface onto another plane surface, you could have gone like this. You could have made grids, and each grid, whatever it contains, you could have drawn exactly that as your copy, and you would have got an exact copy. But this is not possible on the Earth. Because if you notice in this map, just notice that the longitudes are spaced away from each other in the blue area, or in this area, the last one, where we have Lakshadweep on one side and Kerala and Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka, and then the Bay of Bengal and the Andaman Nicobar Islands. These grids are spaced far away. The longitudes are far away from each other. The latitudes all over the map are equally spaced, but not the longitudes. The when you look at the longitudes near Jammu and Kashmir, they are covering a lesser surface area. They are narrow to each other. They are near each other. Because finally, when these longitudes will reach the North Pole, they'll be touching at the pole. So these are not parallel. Now the problem of representation is, you're projecting if you're projecting the globe onto flat surface. The globes are the most important and accurate way to represent the surface of the Earth, but they are not convenient to use. However, because it's not practical to carry a globe into the field, makers must figure out how to represent a round map on a flat piece of paper. Now, for that, we use different kind of methods. They are known as methods of projection. We have the polar projection, we have the conical projection, then we have the cylindrical projection. Just imagine that you have a ball which is painted with the colors of the map and the paint is still wet. And if you touch a flat circular piece of paper to the North Pole, or make a cone out of a paper and fit it like a cap, a joker's cap, onto the top portion of the Earth, or else encircle the globe with still the wet paint into a cylindrical form of paper, and then you open the paper up and see where the paint and has stuck and what is the shape you're getting. All right, so these are methods of making maps, and they are known as projections. They are essential for map making. We have a chapter only on projections, so that we'll be doing later this year. Now, none of the projections are accurate. Now, on the left hand side top of this slide, you read Mercator projection versus the true size of countries. There are three problems when you represent a curved surface onto a plane surface. First thing is, you are not able to show the correct direction. The north doesn't remain really the north all the time. The second thing is, you are not able to represent the correct distance from one point to another point. They get distorted. And thirdly, the surface area, the area gets distorted. So these three problems are there in any kind of projection you use. Now, if you don't look at the line written on the top, and if you look at the world map, and if you just remember that everywhere you have seen this world map, whether in your textbook or on a world map chart in your classroom, or on your smart board, or in an atlas, this is the map you've seen, or maybe in a travel agent's office. Now, you notice that there are two shades of color here. One is dark and the other one is light. So if you look at Greenland, now let us look at Greenland. Now Greenland, if you are using this particular projection called Mercator, it's preserving the shape and it's preserving the direction, but it's not preserving the area. Your actual Greenland is like the dark spot in the middle. And what we have seen Greenland to be, the comparative size is the outer lighter area size. So we have been always thinking, we have had a wrong idea all the time about the relative size of countries. China is not as big as it's shown. Russia is not as big as it's shown. It's about the size of the darker portion. Then you notice that the countries which are in and around the equator in this map, they don't have the lighter colored portion. That means these countries are represented correctly. That size is correct, the direction is correct, and the distance is correct, the area is correct. All right. So these are problems which the cartographer is a map maker, he faces. That is the reason we said that cartography or map making is an art, and it's a science, and a lot of technology goes behind it. Now, there's something known as map generalization. This includes all the changes in a map that are made when one derives a smaller scale map from a larger scale map. Now, a large scale map, we are going to see a slide on that. It is representing a smaller portion of land, but it is representing it in more details. And a small scale map is just opposite. It is showing a larger scale a piece of land, and it's showing it on a smaller representation on paper. So it cannot hold much information. So when you make this change, when you are deriving a small scale map from a bigger scale map, you have to let go of certain details. You have to remove some details. Rather than being specific, you have to be general now. That is not a generalization. Every map is made with a definite objective. For this, the map contains a plan. What is to be left out and what is to be included are planned. The map maker selects the information relevant to the selected theme, what you want to show, and then simplifies the map as per the need. Whatever has is not relevant to the map, he just removes. That is one generalization. Now, the fourth thing to bear in mind is known as map design. Now, this is the systematic and logical process of arranging and assigning meaning to elements on a map for the purpose of communicating whatever information you want to communicate about the place. So, there are five main design principles. They are legibility, visual contrast, and the figure ground, and the hierarchical organization and balance. Together, these form a system for seeing and understanding the relative importance of the content in the map and on the page. The graphic characteristics of map are planned, and this includes selection of appropriate symbols. Sometimes when you're showing an airport, you see a symbol of a small aeroplane on the map, like that. Their size and form, styles of lettering, what kind of lettering will you use, uh, what is the width between lines, and what is the selection of colors and shades, and arranging of various elements of map design with a map within a map, and designing a map legend, etc. Now, when you again come back to the map of Rajasthan, now you are able to better understand this map. The districts are shown with different colors. The colors, neighboring districts do not have the same color. So you have a visual contrast. Then you have the scale, then you have the direction. So the direction is showing you the orientation. You're oriented toward the north, and then according to that, your brain automatically calculates the other directions. What font has been used, what font size is used, what are the shades. If you look at the area outside the state of Rajasthan, you have light green, you have dark green, you have brown. So when you look at this place called Bahawalpur in Punjab, and there's a brown plain area, you immediately interpret that as a desert. And the top right corner, top left corner, where it shows this shades of different shades of light and dark brown, you interpret that as a mountain area, and on the right hand side, the green area, you interpret that as a plain, which they actually are. This is the actual process of drawing or printing the map. What is that process? It's the actual construction and production of the map. This was done by hand in the earlier times. People were cartographers, they used to do it by hand, and maps were drawn with pen and ink and printed mechanically. But now we have computer aided mapping, just like you have CAD and CAM, that is computer aided designing. We have computer aided assistant mapping and photo printing of techniques. Now, in this modern age, we utilize a lot of uh, high technology. We utilize aerial photography. That is, the land area is photographed by an aircraft, and that aircraft takes the photograph of the land, and that photograph is used for making the map. Or sometimes satellites do that work. Now, there are broadly two types of maps. One is based on scale, and the other one is based on function. On the maps based on scale, we have large scale maps and small scale maps. In large scale map, we have something known as cadastral map. What it is, we'll learn shortly. And we had topographical map. What it means, I'll tell you shortly. Then we have wall maps and atlas maps, which are small scale maps. Then based on function, we have physical maps and cultural maps. Physical maps show the physiological features of the earth, such as relief, the geological distribution, the climatic distribution, and the soil distribution. In political maps, we have the administrative boundaries, the states and the countries and the districts, so on. Then again, in cultural maps, we have the population maps, area with less density of population, area with more density of population, and then the distribution, etc. Then we have the economic maps, which tell us the economic use of the land. And then we have transportation maps. We have more types of maps, but only this much are there in your syllabus. Now, in this slide, uh, the right hand side portion is that left hand side small box. Now, if you look at the scale of the map on the left, it says 1:1,000,000, and the one on the right is 1:10,000. So that means that the map on the right hand side is enlarged 100 times. That is 1 million divided by 10,000. If you do the division, you have 100 remaining. So the one on the right hand side is showing more detail. It's a large scale map. And one on the left hand side is showing less details. It's a small scale map. But the small scale map is showing a larger portion of land. You can see the bay and the sea and the neighboring area, the neighboring towns. But in a large scale map, you can see the streets, also the parks, the piers. So small scale map is a small representative fraction, and it portrays a large area. And conversely, a large scale map is a large representation fraction, and it portrays a small area but in more detail. Now, what is a cadastral map? The word cadastral comes from the French word cadastre, which means a register or a book in which the government keeps the record of land, of what you call the owned land. If you are owning a land, piece of land, or piece of property, or territorial property, they keep a register of that. That is a cadastral map, and that's a cadastre. The government agencies make cadastral maps to keep land records, and these are very large scale maps. The ratio is often 1:4,000 or 1:2,000. And the topographical maps, first of all, what is topography? It's a study of the shapes and features of land surface. So a topographical map shows these features of the land surface and the shapes. When these are represented on a map, such maps are known as topographical maps. Now, before such maps are made, surveys are done. These surveys are very accurate, very precise, and detailed maps are prepared on the basis of this information. The ratio is still large. It appears that 1 million, 1 ratio to 50,000, that is 2,50,000, appears to be a big number or a small ratio. But no, it's not like that. It's still a big ratio when you compare it to the map of the country, which is 1 ratio 30 million. Now, these are the usual ratios: 1 ratio 2,50,000, 1 ratio 50,000, and 1 ratio 25,000 when it comes to topographical maps. Now, here are examples. On the left hand side, you have a cadastral map. Note that the numbers are given. For every piece of land, they have given a number. And if there is a house constructed on that land, it's shown with a different color. But the house is not important to be shown in a cadastral map. It's mainly about the land. Now, in a topographical map, you can see these lines. These lines are known as contour lines. About that, we have a separate chapter. And you can see there's a hill and there's a village and there's a stream, blue colored line, which is a stream or a river flowing. We have some low lying areas. These are all shown on topographical maps. Now, some small scale maps. We have the wall maps. You all have seen some maps hanging in your geography laboratory, or sometimes your teacher brings a map to your classroom. Now, these are drawn on a large size paper, or like a chart paper, or a plastic base, and used in classrooms and lecture halls. You can also find such maps in the offices of the government, whether it's central government or the state government. The scale is smaller than our topographical maps. Then comes the atlas. Atlas is a book. It's a collection of maps. Now the book is the size almost like a A4 size paper, just slightly bigger than that. So you are representing a very big area on a very small piece of paper. So for this reason, you have a scale which is very small. You're using a very small scale, and they present highly generalized picture of physical or cultural features, and still they provide a lot of information. If you can read the or interpret the map presented on a atlas correctly, it's very informative. Now, the example on the left is a wall map, and the one on the right is an atlas map. It's taken from an atlas. Now, based on function, we have the physical map, which shows the physical features of the Earth's surface. We have the relief map. It shows the general topography of an area, such as mountains and plains and valley and plateau and drainage. We have geological maps. It shows geological structures, rock types, distribution of rocks and minerals, etc. They can all have different themes, and based on different themes, we have different map types. Here is a map of India, which is a relief map. It's very easy to interpret. You know where the mountains are, and you know where the plain is, and you know where the hilly regions are, and you know where the plateau. You can almost, as if you were to touch this map, you would feel a texture in your finger, and that's a relief map. Then you have the geological map. It shows a geological feature. In this example, it shows the different types of rocks, whether they are sedimentary or igneous or metamorphic or tertiary or recent and Pleistocene. The themes of geological map can be various. Then, based on function, we have two more physical maps, climatic map and the soil map. The climatic map shows the climate of an area, and they show the distribution of the elements of weather and climate, that is temperature, rainfall, humidity, wind direction, velocity, etc. And in soil map they show the distribution of different types of soils and their properties. Here are examples. Now in the climatic map on the left, you have the map of India, and you have this blue thick lines, and you have the brown dotted lines. The blue thick lines show the onset of monsoon. So when it's 1st of June, the monsoon touches Kerala. Today is 5th of June, so it's reached Karnataka, and like that it goes. So this particular map on the left is to show the onset of monsoon. So similarly, there can be different maps for different purposes, but they are all climatic maps. On the other hand, we have the soil map, and this shows the different types of soil, whether they are alluvial or black or red and yellow, laterite, so on and so forth. The arid soils, the mountain soils. Now, when we say cultural, we mean the uh, uh, human geography side. So we have maps such as the political map and the population map. In the political map, they show the administrative divisions of an area. It can be the area can be a country or a state or a district or even a tehsil. They facilitate planning and management of those areas. And population map, they show information related to population, such as distribution of population density and growth, the age and sex composition of a population, the distribution of demographic groups like language, like religion, etc. Here's an example of political map, so very common. This is the map of after Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir became separate union territories. So this is the complete and full, the newest map of India. On the right hand side, you have the map of India for population. Each state's population is mentioned in the state boundaries, and this is the population map of India for the year 2020. So this shows today we are in June, so this shows the population of the country as on June year 2020. Then again we have the cultural maps known as economic map and transportation map. Now, economic map shows the economic activity on that land or the economic use of the land. It shows what types of crops are grown and where, and what types of industries and markets are present, what are the routes for trade, and how the commodities flow, and so on. And transportation shows the modes of transportation available in that area, such as roads, highways, railway lines, the location of railway stations, airports, shipping ports, etc. Now, again, cultural maps, economic map, and transportation map. In economic map, this is the example. This is the GDP per state. That is the theme taken for this area. This map on the left, the themes can be different for different purposes. On the right hand side, again, this is a transportation map, but this one is a schematic, and this is not exactly accurate uh, for direction and distance. But still, this kind of maps are very useful because this one is supposed to inform you about the railway network. So similarly, we have different themes for transportation. Now we come to a topic about measuring distance on a map. So now you already know what is the scale of or the map scale. Now on the left hand side, you see the scale drawn on the map, it says 0, 250 and 500. And on this ruler, when you keep the ruler near the scale, you come to know that 1 inch on the ruler is equal to 500 miles on the map. So if you want to find the distance between two states or 2 points on the map, you just calculate the distance with using the ruler, just in inches, or in centimeters if you had taken the scale in centimeters, and that value you multiply with the scale of the map. Now in this map, the scale is 1 ratio 500 miles. So it means that 1 inch on the scale is equal representing 500 miles on the land. So if the distance between 2 points, the straight distance, if it is equal to 2 inches, then it will mean that it is 2 into 500 miles, that is 1000 miles. That is the interpretation you have to do. Now same thing can be calculated using a divider. And in all the years you have been carrying a divider in your geometry box, perhaps this is a time to use it actually. You keep the points on 2 points on the map, or 2 places, or 2 cities, or 2 points of which you want to measure the distance. And then you transfer this divider to a ruler, and then you see the map, and then you multiply that value by the scale of the map, just like we did in the earlier case when we were using only a ruler. For curved lines like a river or a road, which is more like reality, you use a string, or better than that is to use a chain as you wear in your around your neck. Because of the heaviness, it sits on the paper, on the map very well. And then you straighten it out, and you multiply, you measure the points of the string and multiply that distance by the scale of the map, and you come to know the distance. Now to measure a direction on the map, you can either use a compass like this that shows where the north is, or you use a compass rose like this, and mainly on the compass rose you will be if you place it on the map or shown on the map, it will be showing the north direction, and other directions are related to it, so that you have to find out by judgment. Now in order to measure an area, you can easily do it on a map. The way it is done is, you count all the squares which are full, the sum of the whole squares. You count the whole squares. In this case, it has been done with purple color, and there are 24 whole squares. So you write that value 24 somewhere. Then you count the squares which are partial. It may be a small fraction also, doesn't matter. It will average out. In any case, this is an approximate method. So those you write, but those ones you have to divide by 2. So the area is the sum of whole squares plus half of the sum of the partial squares, and this you multiply with this map scale. So everywhere you have noticed in this chapter so far, there's a crucial role of the map scale. Now here's a device known as a polar planimeter, and how to use it is written in your textbook, but not much emphasis has been given on it. This is the end of the chapter, and if you have gained anything from this chapter, give it a thumbs up and wait for the next video. Subscribe to this channel. Bye till the next video.